Welcome to the 35th Annual March for Life here in Washington, D.C. If you've ever been here before, you know it's a totally awesome and inspirational event where tens of thousands of pro-lifers come from all over the country to stand up for innocent human life. Today we're going to interview some of those marchers, and we're going to talk to some pro-life leaders and get their take on what the march means to them personally and how it's impacting our nation.
A few days before the March for Life, this senior high school youth group loaded into a 15-passenger van and started their drive toward Washington, D.C. I had their leader, Michael Walsh, ask a few students why they're going to the march.
I'm going to the March for Life. I feel it's a good opportunity to meet other youth who have the same views as I do about, problems like abortion. And, I like to show people that, hey, this is what I believe, this is what I think is right. So that's why I'm here.
Why do you think it's so important to take a stand for life?
Obviously they can't speak for themselves. The unborn cannot speak for themselves, so who's going to do it if they can't? I feel that taking on that role is an honorable thing to do.
I met up with Jordan and the rest of the group at the march.
Let's talk to a few of the students here. Chaz?
Hello.
Welcome to Washington.
Hi, thank you.
So why did you personally want to be here at the march today?
Well, I really love my life, and I'm having a blast living and everything, and I just think everybody should be able to live, and that includes the unborn. And it's a travesty that there's over 40 million people who haven't had the opportunity to do that.
Sylvia, tell me why you came to the march.
Well, I see life as the most important gift that God's given us, and it's the most important responsibility that we have in this world, and it's just the most awful thing ever that we're just killing our own babies. It's just something we have to stand up for and something to say, this is wrong and we need to stop it.
Concerned Women for America is located in Washington, D.C. and is active nationwide. They understand the value of empowering women with the truth about abortion. I interviewed their president, Wendy Wright.
Now, the March for Life, of course, is one of the pro-life movement's most visible events. How do you think it impacts the scene in Washington?
The march brings one of the largest crowds to D.C. every year. In fact, it's the only issue that brings people every year. And it's a beautiful reflection of people's concern, not for themselves. So many other times marches that are held in Washington, D.C., it's demanding rights for themselves. But in this case, it's for people that we may never even know, may never meet. It's for unborn children, so that they can have the right to live.
On the day of the March for Life, over 70,000 people gathered on the National Mall and along the sidewalks. The marchers followed behind the traditional banner and walked along Constitution Avenue to the U.S. Supreme Court. I interviewed Cathy Ruse, a senior fellow for legal studies at the Family Research Council and a D.C. local, to ask her perspective on this big day.
Cathy, you've been around the Washington scene for a long time, and you've seen a lot of marches, no doubt.
Yeah.
What is your take on the impact the marches have on the Washington, D.C. area?
Well, it's hard to ignore. Some of the newspapers try to ignore the march, but it really is impossible when tens upon tens of thousands of mostly young people come to Washington every year for this march. I've actually been surprised at the coverage of the march, because more and more reporters are not able to ignore the fact that the march is predominantly made up of very young people. This is surprising to some in the mainstream media. This is the way the march has been for many years. So that truth about the pro-life movement is coming through, and it comes through most powerfully from the March for Life.
Despite the cold and rainy weather, pro-life advocates were singing and proudly displaying their allegiance to life at all stages.
Our people want to come out when it's nasty. They want to come out when it's cold. So they want to show that it's hard. There's something about that. And I think the lesson conveyed, even as the media tried to downplay the numbers, it's shaded, the lesson conveyed is they're not going away. They're really not abating. They're really going to stay with us. They're not giving in. And is the sign of something quite interesting.
Next, I caught up with Rock for Life, and Cathy Ruse talks about the new vibrancy in the pro-life movement. This and more when we return.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
If you've just joined us, this week we're bringing you the sights, sounds, and some opinions of people at the 35th Annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. I interviewed marchers and some key leaders to find out why the March for Life is such an important event.
Lisa, you're here at the March for Life. Is this your first march?
No, it is not. It's the third march.
Third.
Been here 3 years.
Okay, this group is Rock for Life. What are you all about?
We're about representing the pro-life message through pro-life bands and youth activism.
So you're all wild and crazy for life, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally crazy. Wah!
So what have you been doing while you're in Washington?
We've been spreading the message, like passing out flyers, spreading the message of how abortion is not right for our generation. It's been killing our generation. We have lost 1/3 and we want it to stop now.
Well, what makes you think they're going to listen to you guys?
We are the next generation. We are going to be a strong voice, and they won't be able to stop us because, you know, this is our generation now and we're taking control and we're going to stop this horrible atrocity from happening. Shout out Rock for Life! Woo!
As I continued on with the marchers, it became clear the people surrounding me were about half my age. It was encouraging to know I was walking with the next generation of pro-life leaders. Wendy Wright and Cathy Ruse agree.
It's so encouraging to see that the baton is being passed off, that there's a next generation willing to take up this fight to protect unborn children and women.
Pro-life views are getting stronger and stronger in this country, and younger people are holding stronger pro-life views than ever before. It really reflects the truth of what the pro-life movement is all about. There's a new vibrancy, increasing vibrancy in this movement. All of that is extremely vital to any movement. Anyone would tell you that. And 35 years out from Roe v. Wade, to have a movement that's growing and not dying is very important.
Do you talk to any of the people that work and live in the district to find out how it impacts them?
I've talked to people who work on the Hill, and they always say that it is an important event, symbolically important. I don't know, in terms of people that work for the agencies along Constitution Avenue or the different departments, I'm not so sure. A lot of them do come out though. They're standing there and we see a lot of people looking out their windows.
So what is the meaning behind this march? In the U.S., it's legal to abort a child from conception until actual birth, as long as the child is still inside her mother's womb. To quote the Roe v. Wade court ruling, the legal word for human life is person. The use of the word is such that it has application only postnatally. This means the law doesn't recognize a developing baby to be a human person until after birth. People of all ages and backgrounds march because science and their hearts tell them a baby inside the womb is a human person.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964, you find a real shift of opinion in the country, with most people in the country, especially in the North, coming to the judgment that there's something wrong about racial discrimination. So the country began to absorb the lesson being taught by the court. Now, the interesting thing is the country has not absorbed this one, Roe versus Wade. The country still holds out. Most people in the country, even people who call themselves pro-choice, think that abortions can be restricted sometime, under some conditions. And the point is that most people out there just don't know that under Roe versus Wade and the companion case of Doe versus Bolton, one can have an abortion anytime through the entire length of the pregnancy and even at the point of birth, as we've seen. The core of people in this country are just not giving in, not accepting it. There's just a lesson on its face that's inescapable.
As people rally along the streets of Washington, D.C., the signs represent their groups, their ideologies, and their reactions to Roe versus Wade. Coming up,
We're here with some marchers who came a very long way to join us today. They came all the way from Italy.
Thank you for inviting us into your home. Each week we feature real people who deal with real life issues head on. Some of their experiences are uplifting, while others will break your heart. But in the end, the message is clear. Those who follow biblical principles on the issues of life are blessed. Become a partner with us in providing a positive, life-affirming message to help change the way the next generation values innocent human life. Please consider a generous gift to help offset the costs of producing this important quality programming. You can donate on our secure website at facinglife.tv or by calling the phone number on your screen during normal business hours. Together, we can make a real difference for life.
While on the March for Life, I talked with a group that traveled across the Atlantic Ocean to participate in this annual event.
Give me your name and what you're doing here.
Yes, my name is Silvio Della Valle. I'm with the group that's called in Italy I voglio vivere. It means I want to live. We have people from Sicily, from Rome, and from Milan. And we have a lot to learn from the Americans, because here we see that the culture of life is taking over the culture of death. In spite of the fact that you will not be able so far to change the law, but you are changing the hearts. And that's what you have to learn from the Americans.
This day has an impact internationally, nationally, and on a personal level as well.
Wendy, you've participated in the march for several years. How has it impacted you personally?
You know, I've worked on abortion for over 15 years and nearly every day for 15 years. And I so enjoy working with pro-lifers in DC, around the country, and even around the world. But sometimes we can almost feel like we're voices crying in the wilderness. We know that there's support, but it is so helpful when there's visible support, when we all gather together and see the diversity amongst us, to see the different ages, from the different walks of life that people come from. And it's kind of just a shot in the arm to continue on and to know that we're speaking on behalf of all those people who come on this one day each year, January 22nd. They come, but they have their regular jobs and their lives, and they do what they can in their communities. But we're able to work on their behalf every day of the year.
Now, you've participated in the march. What personally do you take away from it?
Oh, it's one of the most hopeful and exciting days to spend in Washington. Lots of hope in the crowd. Look, it is a consensus in this country that abortion on demand, unlimited abortion, is just not acceptable. And that is reflected in this march. We are united as a people together against something that took away our rights as democratic citizens.
On the day of the march, people traveled from all 50 states to peacefully declare the rights of preborn babies and a mother's right to know how an abortion can negatively affect her. I met up with Kara and her mom, who traveled from Florida to March for Life.
This is my first year as a freshman in high school.
What made you come all the way up to Washington for the march?
Well, as a student in high school, I wanted to be able to speak out for this baby's unborn that should have a chance to live.
And I see you've got your mom here with you.
Yes.
What's your take on the march? Is this your first time here?
Yes, it's my first time as well. It's very overwhelming. I mean, it's almost bringing a tear to my eye because there's so many people that are out here to support, and it's just a wonderful event.
Do you think the March for Life has an impact nationwide?
It's a steady drumbeat. It makes an impression. It would make an impression if it went away, but it's never going to go away until Roe v. Wade is overturned. I think Michael Novak, who is a Catholic historian, has said that more people have marched in the March for Life than any other protest in Washington in the history of our country. He may well be right. This march is not going away. Some years it's slightly bigger than others, but it's never a small year for the March for Life.
What do you think Roe versus Wade did for, or maybe I should say, to women?
Well, it's really a cruel thing that Roe v. Wade did to women. What it worked is, in effect, a seal of approval on society to abandon women in their point of greatest need. What legal abortion for all 9 months has done is allowed society, from family members and friends to the larger society, community and society at large, to simply turn our backs on women who are pregnant and in need, because they have an easy solution. Abortion's legal all 9 months. Go get an abortion. So, as my friend Sarah Foster of Feminists for Life likes to say, it's our body, it's our choice. The pro-choice feminist mantra has become, it's our problem as women. We're all alone to deal with untimely pregnancies, thanks to Roe v. Wade. So, it's a cruel joke on women.
Organizations like Feminists for Life and Concerned Women for America are empowering women to know the facts about abortion, which every woman has a right to know. When we return,
it was 5 years, and we thought, okay, the level of casualties now, 5 million plus, it's getting close to the Holocaust.
And I'll talk with the executive director of Bound for Life.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
While in Washington, D.C., covering the 35th Annual March for Life, I interviewed the president of Concerned Women for America, Wendy Wright, the senior fellow for legal studies at Family Research Council, Cathy Ruse, and the Edward Nye Professor of American Institutions, Hadley Arkus.
30 years ago, I was speaking in Boston on the 5th anniversary of Roe versus Wade, in a big event at Faneuil Hall. It was 5 years, and we thought, okay, the level of casualties now, 5 million plus, it's getting close to the Holocaust. And we just couldn't believe it would go on much longer than that. It really was hard to believe. We had early movements to amend the Constitution. We had a human life bill being brought forward. You know, to think that we're here now, the 35th anniversary of Roe versus Wade. And that the decision seems that well entrenched, and that the media, with its grand resources of research, still has not managed to impart to most of the American people what's in Roe versus Wade. That itself is a remarkable thing.
Do you see history repeating here, whereas we have the Holocaust, we have the past history of slavery? Do you think this is another one of those high-level tragedies in the history of the world?
Oh, absolutely, yes, yes. And people seem remarkably obtuse in failing to recognize the common threads here. Bill Clinton vetoing the bill on partial birth abortion, explaining that it represents a danger to the health of the person. But he mentions everybody in the scene except the one whose skull is being crushed and brains being sucked out. The Unborn Victims of Violence Act, renamed after the Petersons, Lacey and Connor. 2 bodies washed on shore. She can't concede that. The only wrong she'll concede is an assault on the woman. This, you know, it's like the old Chico Marx line, who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes? And it's, anyone with eyes can see that 2 bodies washed on shore. But the screen of ideology has come down. She can't acknowledge it. So on the one hand, we simply shifted a whole class of beings from the class of rights-bearing beings by simply shifting the labels. Here it's a human, conceived of humans, and we simply switch the label. It's a fetus.
Are semantics withholding the U.S. Supreme Court from overturning Roe v. Wade? Perhaps. If so, what does the future look like?
Well, what if abortion stays legal for many years to come? What effect do you think that'll have on women?
Yes. Well, abortion may very well stay decriminalized or legal, either on a federal level or on a state level. Let's say if Roe versus Wade were overturned and each state decided for themselves, you may have a patchwork where some outlaw abortion, but then others will allow it. So we are looking for that this is a long-term